Hi, everybody, and welcome back to this edition of XBS. Joining me now on the set of XBS is a fantastic race car driver. He's been racing for 20 years now, and he got his start in kart racing. On the set is Justus, and Aaron is the United States Formula 2000 national champion. Out of 13 events, he won 5. In those 13 events, there were 3 oval tracks that they raced on. He won all 3 of those, so he was crowned the oval champion as well. So you had a great 2000. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Now tell me about the series. That for people that don't know about it, it's kind of the stepping stone to where you want to be someday, racing in maybe an Indy 500.
That's exactly right. I mean, I started racing go-karts, which is the first step in the ladder. And I started racing karts in '81, so this has been, a 20-year dream realized. We're almost there. And basically, what's happened is an IndyCar team, Forsythe Racing, has taken me under the wing and said, "We're going to foot the bill to get you to IndyCar where you want to go, but you're going to start here, right. And if you have the ability, then we'll bring you up through." It's
not kind of like Little League, is it? It's a little bit above Little League. I mean, if you were making an analogy here, because Jerry, Jerry Forsythe's taking care of you. Mm-hmm. You're in your 2nd year of a 5-year contract. Mm-hmm. So if you hit it big, you're going to stay with him for a little while, huh? Nobody can steal you.
No, that's true, and it's not like Little League in that the drivers that we're competing against, we're ready to make that step to the big leagues. We just haven't had the exposure, the financial backing, quite as much experience as we may need in car setup and things of that nature, but we're ready to make that step. So we're Little League, you got these young kids coming up through, and their big step is years away. Right. Mine may be, tomorrow.
I think what you mentioned is probably the most important thing. About, you have the same quality of experience to a certain level, but maybe what you don't have is you don't have the pocketbook that some of these other guys have that they can vault right in there. Is that correct?
That's true. I mean, auto racing is so difficult in that it takes so much money to do it. You don't have your glove and your baseball and your bat. You have these teams and these transporters and race cars, and for me to race where I raced last year was $250,000, and ultimately when we go to IndyCar, I mean, you're looking at $10 million for one season. So it's not something that a 25-year-old, 27-year-old guy can just jump in and do. Yeah. So you have to have corporate America, the financial backing, to get you there, and that's what Forsythe Racing has given me the opportunity.
Well, how did you hook up? I'm sure there's a lot of people at home wondering, well, how did this guy, he's 27 years old, how did he hook up with this Jerry Forsythe and Forsythe Racing to be on their team? I mean, he keep a close eye on you when you're coming up through the ranks?
Not at all. And it's just one of those stories that everybody, it seems like once they make it, they have their one story. And
what's your story?
Jerry, I was friends with the late Greg Moore, who drove for Jerry throughout his career like I am. And long story short, I got an introduction through Greg, and Jerry said, well, let me see what you got, and he gave me a shot. Just had no idea who I was. I asked him to help me. He said he would. He did a partial season in 1999. We won a few races. He said, I like what I see, so he signed me up for 5 years.
That's amazing. Now, this is something, too, that you were telling me about. You also have another business on the side when you're not racing, because the first race that he'll actually race in for 2001 will be in Long Beach, California. And so that's a little ways away. And what, in April? Are they racing in April?
In April.
April.
Right.
So you have some time on your hands. What do you do at that time?
Well, let me modify that by saying, assuming Forsythe Racing signs me up for their Formula Atlantic or Indy Lights program, whatever they elect, then we'll be racing at Long Beach in April. But in the interim, until then, I have a design business, and I do a lot of print material, a lot of design for racing companies.
Excellent. And Jerry likes that you're not just sitting at home with a parent that has a lot of cash, just kind of letting you just hang out. I mean, you're actually doing something business-wise, just like Jerry does.
Right. I mean, Jerry's a self-made businessman, and I think that when we met and were introduced, he liked the fact that I wasn't sitting at home and I didn't have a last name, I didn't have a lot of family money. He liked that I was out trying to find a way to make this happen, and he said, continue that. Ultimately, one day, if I'm racing in IndyCar, then that'll be my job.
Yeah, it's an amazing story in motorsports, how these guys get to where they go. When we come back, we'll talk more with Aaron about what eventually he wants to do, and also the early beginnings in kart racing. Kart racing is a fantastic way to get involved in motorsports. It's a great feeder program. We'll talk more about that and more of XBS right after this.
After the wildest night of their lives, Jesse and Chester can't remember
Dude, where's my car?
what they did.
No way we were here last night.
Look, it's Jesse and Chester.
Or who they did it to.
Have you seen my car?
Well, I saw the back seat.
Oh, I'm talking about the whole thing. You got a tattoo! So do you, dude! What does my tattoo say? Sweet! What about mine?
Dude, where's my car?
What does mine say?
Rated PG-13, December 15th, only in theaters.
We asked the tough fans of the St. Paul Saints to test the Norelco Quadra Action Razor for 21 days.
Electric sting!
But when they tried it, they started to like this advanced Norelco, with slots to cut the long hairs and holes that get the short stubble. They got a quick, close shave without the nicks and cuts of a blade. By the end, these fans had fans of their own. The Quadra Action Razor. Try it for 21 days. It's guaranteed or your money back. Norelco. Put it to the test.
Look at what we're launching. The new Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. We're talking lots of new tricks and hundreds of insane new combos. New Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, rated T.
A team of offense in Florida. Marksman Shanahan and Fedorov and the Red Wings battle scoring machine Pavel Bure and the Panthers. Every game is a story. Red Wings Panthers, Friday at 8 on ESPN.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to this edition of XBS. Aaron Justus joining me on the set of XBS, and Aaron is the United States Formula 2000 champion, and he won. I know that you're looking at this 13 races, you win 5. That's a pretty good ratio. Have to be thrilled with what you've done.
It is pretty good. If you look at race driver's career, his win percentage is pretty low, and to go in and win, you know, more than a third of the races, we're pretty pleased with that.
Now tell me about the difference of racing, you know, with the oval tracks, because I know, I mean, you were 3 for 3. That's pretty spectacular, 100% there.
That was a bit of a surprise. I've usually been a road course specialist.
It's hard for you to say that, too.
It is a huge surprise, I'm telling you. I come from a karting background, and you don't run ovals in the karts, and I'm a road course specialist. However, in auto racing in the United States, oval racing is very important. You've got the Indy 500 and then the race out here in California, Fontana, that they pack a lot of people into these things. You see in NASCAR, it's all oval racing. And they pay a lot of money to win those things. And so a lot of people were watching the Oval Crown, and so for us to be undefeated was really good.
You mentioned about kart racing, and we covered a lot of kart racing in our time. Your thoughts about that as a feeder program, because kart racing definitely, it's something inexpensive you can get into, anywhere from $2,000 to $10,000, depending on how much you want to spend, but it's a great way to get into your sport. Can you talk about that?
Well, I mean, obviously you can't beat it. You know, I got into karting when I was 7 years old, and I think that as these youngsters get into karting, as they develop and they learn how to drive, it becomes second nature. And then as you start some kid at 20, 25, 30, it doesn't come as naturally. And so these kids have started really young and got used to the driving, what it takes, the technique, and then racecraft, actually racing with other people, which is different from going fast on any given day. These guys are unbeatable. And if you look at the top drivers in auto racing, from Michael Schumacher in Formula 1 to all the top IndyCar guys, they all come from go-karts.
And they come back to it, too. They practice. They have a kart that they definitely come back and practice on, because as you were just saying, you and I on the break were saying, hey, you said, Paul, it's not something we can just go out in our backyard and toss the ball around and get some practice. I mean, you have to schedule your test days, and each one of those test days, when you race is $15,000, not in karting, but in what you're doing.
Right. Yeah, when you get up to the, well, obviously IndyCar, but right below that, Indy Lights or Formula Atlantic, the test days aren't, it's not something you just go out and do on any given day. They're $10,000 to $15,000 for one day. And so we have to schedule those and budget those. So if we want to go out and just stay in shape and drive around all day, we'll go out in a 125 shifter cart or something like that.
You mentioned something about staying in shape. You got to be in shape, and you got to not have the death grip on the wheel, but you got to be able to know how to breathe, and physically you've got to be in decent condition. Can you tell us about that?
Well, something people don't think about with auto racing, they can only compare it to driving to the supermarket. They drive to the supermarket every day, well, I guess they could be a race car driver. But we don't have, if we're in the Indy 500, you're doing 240 mile an hour plus for 500 miles. That's over 3 hours of going that fast. We don't have timeouts, half times, huddles, anything like that. You're always on the edge. And a lot of the NASCAR drivers, a lot of the IndyCar drivers, from the start of the race to the end of the race, they'll lose 8 pounds from just sweat and just, you know, for 3 hours they're going 240 miles an hour. And that's a football field a second. You don't have any time to make a mistake. None at all.
Talking about mistakes, how do you avoid mistakes in test days? Do you kind of set up for things, different scenarios like, okay, if I get caught in this situation, this is what I want to do? You, obviously, Aaron, you can't plan for that, but you can think about it. Can you tell me about that scenario?
Well, you know, testing's tough because you know, through the year, the sponsors don't want you damaging equipment, don't want you tearing things up because it costs somebody money.
Right.
But at the same time, in testing, you have to push those limits that maybe you don't want to push at the race because you don't. It's better to make mistakes in testing. And so, a good race car driver finds that limit without going over it too often and crashing the car or tearing up equipment. That's what teams look for. I mean, these kids think they can go out and go real fast, and they may. But if they go out and they're putting wheels off the track and crashing the car, that's costing somebody money. So, you know, a good driver goes out and finds those limits in testing and doesn't go over the edge, doesn't crash the car, and then that gets them prepared for the race.
Ultimately, what do you want to do? What do you want to be known for when this is all said and done?
Well, there's no doubt that most of the drivers in my position want to end up in IndyCar. I mean, that's what I've dreamed about since I was 7 years old.
Well, that's the steps you take, and doing the show is one of the steps. You know, something we do here on XBS is to promote not only great athletes, but also to promote the athletes that are going to be stars of tomorrow. I think we have one right here with Aaron Justus. Aaron, thanks for stopping by. You did a great job.
Thanks for having me.
All right, this has been another edition of XBS. I'm Paul Higgins. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports. For more information, log on to ESPN.com